Metal does not always have to be complicated, and if it is complicated, that doesn't always mean that it's good. It's reaching the end of the year, and so I've been going back throughout the year, re-listening to some of my favorite records and the records that I enjoyed the most. Just some general food for thought as a topic. I don't necessarily think that experimentation or trying to be boundary pushing is always what people want all of the time. If you're consuming a lot of music, you can kind of become desensitized to the same things, and you start to recognize patterns in the things that you're listening to, so it's not hard to understand why you're always looking for something fresh and exhilarating, something that puts a little bit of pep in your step. And considering just how much music I listen to every single month for this channel alone, let alone my own listening, yeah, that can be very true. But I do want to make a couple points about that as a greater statement. Number one, I think that when you try to go so far into experimentation, you can miss just as much as you succeed. And I think you see this happen a lot with specifically very technical bands like tech death bands or progressive metal bands that obviously have a lot of efficiency to what they're doing. It's not hard to see that they kick ass at what they do. They're clearly very proficient at their craft, but why does it sometimes come out the other side sounding very hollow and manufactured and like there isn't any guts or glory to it? Maybe it just comes down to trying to be quirky and different and wanting to sort of expand the genre, but you don't actually have any push behind it. And you know that old saying, everything's been done before in some form or fashion? That kind of is true. There's never going to be anything that is so fucking new that there's been no sign of it prior. Those types of records are few and far between, and most of the time when I hear something labeled experimental or avant-garde, I can very clearly tell where they're taking their influence from, and it's not necessarily that intriguing or interesting, and that's not saying they're bad records. There's certainly some fantastic avant-garde records out there, but am I stupid for sometimes just wanting to turn my brain off? Now obviously this is not an excuse to just make shitty, subpar, mediocre music that doesn't do anything interesting whatsoever with the format, but this is saying that there is something to be said about doing something well established really well. Whether it's something you personally establish yourself within your style, or if you are just mimicking something else but doing it really good. There's a difference between just sounding plain derivative and people being like, well, why wouldn't I listen to the better version that came before you, and actually doing something to build on that legacy or honor that in a cool way. And as much as I love hearing a record that really wows me because it evokes some sort of deep emotion, which I would say 9 times out of 10 those are going to be the records that I reach for at the end of the day, sometimes I just want to hear a good melody, a soaring chorus, a really catchy main riff that isn't too experimental or technical, something that sounds cool to my ears, something that tickles that part of my brain, a kick-ass guitar solo that might be very derivative, but it is catchy and earwormy. And if you feel differently, that's fine. If you're someone that always wants to be wowed with your music, more power to you. But honestly, with so much music out there, sometimes I just want to listen to something that is like comfort listening. Something that is familiar, but still catchy, still fun, still nice to listen to. And like I said with progressive metal and tech death, I think if you are solely focused on how your music sounds to the listener as opposed to making music that sounds good to the listener, you might get caught up in trying to sound original and trying to sound new, that it falls flat and somehow comes out the other side sounding hollow and boring and engineered in a factory because you don't have the genuine soul behind it. And that's what sets apart amazing records and not so amazing records. The true passion that is behind them, and if it's coming from a place of wanting to actually experiment versus just trying to experiment for the sake of blowing up or getting some sort of reaction from people because you think you're doing something new. I promise, darling, you're probably not doing something new, and if you are, people are going to find it. If it's passionate, people are going to find it, but otherwise you might just get clowned on or constantly compared and held in the shadow of another artist that ends up eclipsing you in the end. Because the gimmick of that definitely wears thin after a while. What are your guys' opinions of this topic? Do you like experimental music more than just kind of quote-unquote basic music? And what exactly is the line between boundary pushing and just not reinventing the wheel? There are plenty of bands that are able to do that and get away with it and sound good, so what exactly is the difference? Agree or disagree? There is no wrong answer. Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear your opinions on this topic. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.